This tutorial will show you how to make a quiz visible early or later than normal to one or a few students that need to take the quiz early or late. And this is going to require the use of groups and groupings in Moodle. That's normally fairly complex, but we're going to use a very simple case that will enable you to make these quizzes available early or late to this restricted few students that need the exception. So let's look at our participants in this course. We're going to the participants view here, and here's the case that we're going to work on here. We've got a student named George who's eval 01 down here, and George has got to miss the normal test dates because a family funeral has come up, so he's going to take the test late, and the instructors agree with that. So we're going to set up quiz 1 to be late for George. And then one other case where we're going to have two students involved is we've got Sarah, who's eval 08, and we've got John, who's eval 07. They're going to take the quiz early because they're both going on a missions trip and won't be here the week that the quiz is given. So I've agreed to give them the test early. So we're going to see how we're going to do this. Okay, so let's look at how Moodle organizes groups. First of all, you can put participants in the class into groups, various groups. You can also put groups into groupings. So grouping is like a group of groups. So you can collect different groups together. And then groupings can be associated with activities. Now, because Moodle does not allow you to associate activities directly with groups, which are associated with people, then we have to use all this structure in order to do our early or late quiz. But we just do a straight line thing, and here are the two things that we're going to do. We've got George wants to take the quiz late, so we're going to put him in the late group. We're going to create a grouping called late grouping and associate late grouping with quiz 1, so that and then set the dates for quiz 1 for those late dates that George can see, and only George will be able to see that quiz on those dates. Now for the early quiz, we got Sarah and John want to take the quiz early. We're going to create an early group, create an early grouping, then put that group in it, and associate the midterm quiz with that early grouping and change the dates for that quiz to early. So Sarah and John will be the only ones that can see the midterm quiz on those early dates. So this is what we're going to do, and now we'll go back to Moodle and see how that's done. Okay, here we are back at the course home page. So let's scroll down and click on Groups under Administration. Okay, now this is where we're going to create both our groups and our groupings according to the two tabs there. So we're going to start with the groups. There's nothing in them now. And we click the Create Group button at the bottom. Now the screen comes up and we type in the group name. So we're going to do Late Group. And we'll even put George's name here. That'll show up for the instructor only. George or anybody else won't be able to see it. And we don't really need to add a description unless you really want to. Don't need an enrollment key. So all we got to do is click Save Changes. That'll create that group. That puts us back on this page. We see the group is created here. Now we need to select the member for that group. So we'll click down here at the bottom, Add Remove Users, and you'll get the participants listed there. Now George is eval 01, so that's right there. So we'll click that, and then we'll click the Add button, and that will put George over under Existing Members. And that's all we got to do for this one because there's just one person in this group. So we go back to groups from the button at the bottom. Now we've got our late group created. Now we need to create the grouping because we can't associate this group with the quiz. We can only associate groupings. So we have to put this group into a grouping. So we're going to click the Create Grouping button. And we're going to give this grouping a name, Late Grouping. Okay, and now we scroll down and click Save Changes. Now we've got our grouping created. But now to be able to associate the group with it, we have to go over here and under this last icon, Show Groups in Grouping, we click that. Now we've got our late group here, and these are potential members of this grouping. There's no members in the grouping now. That's the way you read this screen. So we click the late group, George group, and click the Add button. And that puts it over here under existing members. And so then we scroll down and go back to groupings. Now that's taking care of the group and groupings for our late quiz. Now let's do one for the early quiz. So we click the Groups tab, scroll down here, and click Create Group again. Now in the group name we're going to type Early Group. Go down and click Save Changes. Now click the Groupings tab. Oops, one thing I forgot. We need to go back to the groups and I've got to add the people in there. So let's go down to the early group in this case. It's got no people in it, as you can see there. Add Remove Users with that button. Now we've got two people to add. We've got Sarah, who's eval 08. We'll click Add Her. And we've got John, who is eval 07. In a normal class you'll be able to see their names here. We just named them funny things in this test class. So now we've got both Sarah and John showing up as existing members of this early group. So go back to groups and now go to groupings. We need to create our early grouping to associate that with the quiz. So we click another Create Grouping with the button at the bottom, and now we're going to do Early Grouping and go down to click Save Changes there. Now we've got our we didn't put an explanation or description under that one, but that's okay. And then we'll click our little icon over here to associate the early group with this early grouping. Let's get that done. Now we go back to the grouping, and now everything is created here. And so now we're ready to go to the quiz and associate that with the grouping and change the dates. So now go to part 2 of the tutorial, which will show you how to change the dates for the quiz, for the early and late dates, and to associate the groupings with it so that the only those students will be able to view and take the quiz on those dates.